Hey guys, so we're going to talk about macromolecules, and I can tell you this is a pretty big topic. This is going to be the bread and butter of the rest of the year. A lot of these macromolecules you'll see again and again, and knowing how they interact with each other and what they're made up of and their structure and their function is going to be super important. So our essential question that you need to add to your notes: what are the properties of the four macromolecules that lead to the function of each? So there's four macromolecules that are important to life: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. All of these are made up of what are called polymers. So what is a polymer? Well, polymers are when you have many monomers connected together by a covalent bond. Monomers basically are the building blocks. So you have individual monomers that are going to connect together to make a bigger polymer. So an example here is we've got one monomer. When they're joined together, they make a polymer, okay? There are some ways that these get conjoined together and that get broken apart. The first type is called condensation or a hydration reaction. Basically what happens is water is removed in order for these two bonds right here to form together to form a longer polymer. Again, this is dehydration because we're removing a water and it forms a new bond. So dehydration leads to forming new bonds. It does use up energy, so it is costly in terms of the amount of energy used for it. Hydrolysis is the opposite of that. So you're going to break basically with water. You're going to have a polymer here, and then when you have that polymer, water is going to be added and it's actually going to break it apart. Okay, molecules that are too large or have enzymes acted upon them, causing them to break. So this is typically during digestion and other processes where big molecules need to be broken down. Apologize for the typo. It should be 2 as in TOO. A disaccharide is formed when you have dehydration reaction with two monosaccharides. So basically a monosaccharide is one sugar, a monosaccharide is one sugar. You bind them together, you make a disaccharide, two sugars, and that bond that forms between them is called a glycosidic linkage. Okay, so think about this question. You will answer it later at the end of the video, but how are macromolecule polymers assembled from monomers? How do they get broken down? So that's what we just went over. So make sure you kind of keep that in your mind as in terms of those two categories. How do we assemble them and how do we break them down? So what are polysaccharides? Polysaccharides are your carbohydrates. So they're storage and building material. In aqueous solutions, remember that means in water, they form rings. So that's what this structure right here is, these rings that they form. So different types of polysaccharides are starch. Starch is storage in plants. Glycogen is our storage in animals. Cellulose is the structure of the cell wall. Chitin is an exoskeleton in arthropods and cell walls of fungi. So exoskeletons, like in bugs, are going to be made up of chitin. Lipids are a really interesting molecule because they are also known as our fats, and they're actually really important even though we don't really like them that much. So hydrophobic, they don't like water, they store lots of energy, and they're, again, biologically important. They're our fats, our phospholipids, and our steroids. So basically fats are made up of what's called a glycerol and two fatty acids. Fatty acids, there's two types of those, three fatty acids that they're made up of. So let me rephrase that. Let me go back. Fats are made up of a glycerol and three fatty acids. There are two types of fatty acids. They're saturated, which have no double bonds, and they have as many hydrogen atoms as possible bonded to the chain. Unsaturated has one double bond at least, and it's due to there being one less hydrogen there. So what happens is we like to say that it forms a kink in the structure, so it kind of looks like a bent arm. So here's an example of what that looks like. So a saturated fat is all these carbons and hydrogens, okay? You'll notice it's all just carbons and hydrogens, okay, forming a straight link right here. An unsaturated fat would have all those carbons and hydrogens, but you notice here there's a double bond, and that double bond here causes there to be a kink. It causes it to be basically unstraight. It's not straight anymore, okay? And those are unsaturated fats. Think about it. Which ones are good for you? Which ones are bad for you? Give you a second to think about that. Saturated fats are the bad ones for you. Unsaturated is good ones. All right, that's the end of this video. The next video is going to explore nucleic acids and proteins.